Welcome to Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus. You can see I'm giddy this week because we won. And I tell you what, I ain't played it down, but at the same time, myself, we're going to have the preacher here. We're going to have the G here. We're going to have the Donna here. We're going to have the Mike here. And what we're going to do is tell you why this game was so special. We'll be back in a
minute. Offensive line's been doing a great job these last 4 games. And again, I want to keep saying that because they don't get enough credit. So the offensive line, they did a great job. Sheriff went out, and Schweitzer came in and did his thing. But again, when you have more time and you kind of let those guys, like the receiver, do their thing.
Yeah, that's an advantage for us. I feel like the way how mobile he is, he's smart with the ball. You know, even when he's scrambling around, his eyes stay downfield. He knows when to run it, tuck it and run it. He knows that he can give us opportunities to make plays down the field as well. We practice that scramble drill a lot, so we know that's going to come up in games, and we just got to make sure we make those plays. But can't say enough about him, the way he extends plays, the way he gives us a chance on each and every play. It's like no play's ever dead when Taylor's there.
Taylor is special. You just never know when it's gonna happen. Being out there, I was with him, before, and I know all the things he can do. He's a special talent, and we just gotta find a spot. And I know he's gonna find us. It was a long journey. It was tough. Just waiting for my moment when I could be out there. My teammates actually playing the game, practicing, but not actually being out there. So I just felt excited. Pre-game, I'm dancing, doing what I do, having fun, and just soak up the moment of being back on the field and actually being able to play the football game.
I had a sneak route coming out of the backfield. I usually have an easier exit getting between the O-line and the D-line. I got ball. I think Deion Jones had me, man. We probably kind of lost me a little bit with Taylor scrambling left. I just stayed alive. Taylor made eye contact with me, and I knew he was about to sling it. And when I caught it, I'm like, Deion Jones, out of all the players on that defense, why I got to be him? But the coach has been on to me, my coach especially, about getting my feet up. I slipped it a little bit, but I was fortunate enough to get my feet up on that when he tried to tackle me. Get an opportunity to finish it, and just be available for the quarterback. Seize the moment when you get a chance to make a play, make a play.
Coach Casper called a great turn, great play call. Ball went up, turnable ball. The other 10 guys on the KOR team did their jobs, man. Great effort. Everybody was pretty much covered up. Made a couple cuts, got on the kicker, and the rest is history.
As I told you, welcome to a happy Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus. For the last 3 weeks, we've been talking about this team can't finish. This team can't do this. The defense isn't playing well, the offense. Well, finally, they came back and won a big game that they needed to win. But one thing about it, we did have some things to look at. You look at the offensive player of the week, and you look at Mallory, and we know if they can get the ball to him early, as they did, he had 6 catches for 123 yards. Now, I know as a person on this panel is going to say, oh, it was all because of the quarterback. No, always get it to the wide receiver early. G taught me this, and you'll be good. But let Donna tell me how the quarterback did play, though.
I wouldn't say that it was all the quarterback, Tony, but he did do a lot. In this game, 23 of 33 for 200 and some yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions, Tony. The offense started slow, but they picked up. He hit Terry McLaurin for 2 big, great passes. One was falling back. Terry came back and got that. But it was towards the end of the game, what he did in establishing the running game and getting the running backs involved more so in the passing game. That pass to J.D. McKissick was the winning score for Washington. But he did a lot of great things with his feet in extending plays, Laura, Tony. And I know you're going to say, man, he ran for his life. Well, sometimes you have to run for your life so that the opponent cannot play tag and tag you. And he did that. He was exceptional to me, Tony, and I gave him an A+. Even though
Now, you know, Donna, that's good. You gave him an A+, and I think that's really ridiculous. But at the same time, you've made some other statements like that we've been going with 20 years, and you still on the show.
Always tell the truth, Tony.
Like you.
I said that the quarterback, he was the better quarterback between even your veteran quarterback that started the season. I think that he gives them a better chance to play. And like I said, this by far was his best game this season so far.
But this is the first game that the offense scored on their first possession. Their first game down to this year. You're telling me that this is a great offense? How did the offensive line play? They started running the ball well, and I like the way they run the ball, but at the same time, they stop. Why?
I didn't say it was a great offense, but it's getting to be a better offense, Tony. And the offensive line did do a good job. I think by far it was their best game of the season. Pass blocking, run blocking. I think that when Brandon Scherf went out with the injury, Wes Switzer came in and did a good job, and Scherf is going to be out with that MCL for a little while. But I think the offensive line is starting to develop themselves and play much better down the stretch. And I think that, you know, you got to give them almost an A for their production this week.
Okay, my two grades, I gave the quarterback a C+, and I gave the offensive line a C+.
Did you say
I think I'm more in line with reality. We are getting the rankings of a mad black woman there, and she's talking about how good they were. We keeping this real.
These glasses, Tony.
Now I'm going to the guy. I'm going to the guy that's going to tell y'all who really won the whole game without any help was the wide receivers. He's our MVP. And G, you've been telling us, man. Thanks, man. It's all about the wide receivers, right? He's mute. Turn your mute off, G.
Sorry about that. When you got
Donna did that on purpose.
You know, Donna, I don't have to tell you about that. I told you about messing with my mic, you know.
I'm on the offensive side this week.
But I think T-Mac did a great job. I think the receivers did a great job as well. They had a couple of drops there, but that happens in the course of the game. But they finished strong. They made the plays when they had to make the plays. And T-Mac is our MVP. I mean, typically when we win, it seems like T-Mac is our MVP. I mean, I'm just saying.
What grade did you give T? I know what you gave it, but
A+. I give the quarterback an A-, and I give the line a B+.
Okay, the reason that I gave your receivers in general, and I noticed you only mentioned T-Mac, is Washington playing with one receiver?
MVP, baby. You mentioned the MVP.
But hey, Milt, is Washington playing with one receiver, or did they have 3 or 4? We saw one drop 2 or 3 balls. I can't remember, G. We said wide receiver.
When you win, you get A+.
Tony, I do want to mention this one, man. Curtis Samuel, he only had 4 catches, 19 yards, but they were big, timely plays, and I think that helped McLaren a whole lot in that situation because they extended drives. So I was glad to see that.
Yeah, and I will mention that he had 4 good catches that really extended time and let them move the ball. But to me, the people that was doing so well, because as we said, this is the first time the Washington team this year has scored on their first possession, whereas when we go to the defensive side of the ledger, they have allowed the other team to score every time the first time they have possession of the ball. Why do they not? I like the running backs. And Milt, I want you to tell me what grade you're giving them, but I like these running backs they have. They have the ability to catch the ball, run after the catch, and I've seen them block pretty good. I saw them block.
That field accounted for 130 yards. All-purpose yards out of the 330 for the whole game, and so Antonio Gibson, he ended up with about 63 yards on 14 carries. That's 4.5 yards a carry. You got to honor that, and I would like to see them continue that production because they were running it pretty good. And if you remember what I've said for the last 3 weeks, I think Scott Turner's beginning to listen to me, beginning to see some out of the backfield play with kids.
And I just say, out of those 122 yards that they gained on the ground, Heineke had a lot of those yards himself.
We've already did the quarterback.
Hey, Tony, that's not a good. That's not a good
No,
word in
a
for
lot
the
of
offensive line. There's a reason.
Hey, Milton, a lot of the quarterbacks in the NFL, they run. Patrick Mahomes, he gets a lot of yards also. So with Heineke, he's just doing what some of the greats are doing.
Well, you know
T-shirt,
what?
so
Yeah,
I'm a homer for him. But I'm just saying that offensive line needs to tighten that up a little bit. He's not gonna be able to. Yes.
I got to go with you on that, but I don't know what Donna and what she had to bring up. I look at the offensive line did do better as the times when they were able, they allowed them to run the ball. They're not calling the plays. That's what I'm saying. If you see your running backs running well and they're doing well, let them run that ball. That always takes time off the clock and everything. What grade did you give your running backs?
I gave the running backs A this week. I gave them an A this week.
Yeah, I gave them a B plus. I gave them a B. I thought they were pretty good, and I like what they did. But at the same time, I knew that we jumped back to that offensive line. They had a big component missing right in the center of the line, but another one that was hurting the receivers and the line was losing the tight end. And you know, Mike has been telling us about this tight end day in and day out, and he's been telling how good he is. And I found out on Sunday how important, Mike, the tight end is to this offense.
Yeah, Logan Thomas is very important.
Oh, hey, wait. Y'all see Mike looking up in the air like he a professor or something now. I can't give you no ups like Professor Mike, can you tell us what happened?
Yes, my glasses are over there. I can't be as official as Donna, but I can try. Logan Thomas, I mean, he's a very important component of this team. He's day-to-day. I like Ricky Seals-Jones. That one catch he made and the move that he made on those two defensive backs was splendid, but he's got to catch the ball. I mean, he's got to catch those close ones because, I mean, it's all about getting the tight end in the game to give, obviously, Heineke more options. But I just want to see more of John Bates. We talked a lot about him as being a hurdler in high school and all these not only academic, but all of these physical attributes that he has. And he was one of the best blockers in college, second best blocking tight end in college. I want to see more of him. And I would not be a bit surprised this week to see Sammis Reyes. Remember early in the year, Coach Rivera talked about him being the most physical guy out on the field in one preseason game. I want to see this 6'7" guy, 260, 4.5 speed with the ball running down the middle of the field. And I want to see who can tackle him. I want to see them get him involved in some fashion. But again, I'm going to give the unit a C plus primarily for blocking.
Yeah, Coach Rivera said in his post-game interview on Monday that they are bringing him up, but he is not Logan Thomas as far as within the passing game. They'll use him more so as a blocker, and they're going to miss Logan Thomas a lot. Tony, when you talk about just injuries across the board in Sunday's game, they got hit hard. Sheriff, like I said, MCL may be out for a while. You've got Brown, he's out, maybe out for a while. Cam Sims with the hamstring. And then you've got Troy McTighe, he's out for the season. And also John Bostic out for the season. So they won that game, but they got hit hard with injuries on Sunday.
Well, we'll find out how the depth is right now, and that's what's going to be important because that's what you expect in the NFL season. This one's a little bit different for the simple aspect that they did not really have the training camp that they needed, and this is all around the league. You can look at all the injuries that are occurring and all of them are pointing to these guys are not in top shape the way they should be. They're not ready to hit, and that's why we're seeing this. Now what it has to point to, are you really a good coach? Are you really a good organization, and who are your backup? Like G would tell you, and everyone tell you, when we went to the Super Bowl, it wasn't always smooth. Art Monk was hurt one year. We had people hurt, but every time we went there and represented. When we come back, we'll talk about a part of the team that everybody around the country talks about how good they are. But now I'm starting to wonder, do we have a bunch of names or do we have a bunch of players? We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back, and this is painful for me because these guys been on me all doing the breaking. We know that your mic is messed up. We did that on purpose, but we'll try to get back to you during the course of the show. Speaking of being walked on, I got walked on. Everybody talking about, and even the national reps are talking about, well, this defensive line is not playing up the way they should. Well, we know that's not happening right now. You can't continue to talk about it. I'm telling you right now, I gave him a C. anytime, every team
See?
that comes, yeah. Oh, y'all don't, wait, whoa.
They
not that bad.
they should
Now,
have
don't
a
be coming
low
up on
D.
me. I'm giving y'all some play right now. Now, you think about it. Anytime, every team that come in here the first 4 games or 5 games, they score on every first possession. That's not just the defensive line. That's the defense in general. Schematically, I don't think these guys, defensive line, is being utilized the way they should. They're allowing some of their defensive ends is very active and big. I'll tell you both of them. What they're doing, and they used to do that to my team a lot when we was at New England, they make you take yourself out of the game. First you come up, then you get upfield and they trap you with either the guard or fullback. They leave that hole open, they run inside of you, or the passer steps up inside of you. That's happening. This defensive line is not performing. I go back to my initial. I think that they're not in the best of shape. Schematically, I don't like that as well, but I'm not a coach. On the other end, let's look at the linebackers. That goes hand in hand. Anytime a team can score on the first possession, each time it's not just the linemen, it's the linebackers as well. So you look at them, I gave them a C. And I was very generous because I was looking for D's and F's this week. I was generous. I admit that. But you guys, why y'all go pile on these people? Because they didn't just shut everything down. The offense been scoring 15 points a game for 2 years, and y'all gonna talk about the defense.
Tony, we're not going back to past years. We're talking about right now. And you've been generous. You gave them a C. They deserved almost an F in that game.
Oh, well, what did you give your guys?
The last 2 games,
the quarterback, an A+.
40+ points. And Sunday's game, Tony, pass rush has not been there. To me, they're digressing. And not only that, soft coverage. In the secondary, they had one play. Patterson just was a wrecking ball to that team. I mean, because he ran and he got passes on them. It was 6 defenders on him one play behind him, and they couldn't catch him. He was wide open. The secondary is not playing well. I don't know if it's the safeties, the cornerbacks, the defensive line is not getting any pressure. You gave them too high of a grade, a C. Again, I told you to pull out those glasses.
What about the linebackers, Tone?
That's what I said. I give them a C as well. And that is a little bit above their pay grade because they haven't been doing as well as I think they should do. They haven't been as active. I know they did. Bostic's hurt now and everything, but at the same time, you need to. Y'all can take that down because my defense will be back. Y'all, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to look at this show the next few weeks. I'm going out and find a crow for them to eat because I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
Well, when you find that crow, we'll eat it.
No, I just wanted to just sort of, since Donna touched on it, I wanted to maybe stick up for the secondary a little bit because I agree with you, Tony. There's not a lot of pressure, and these guys are sort of hanging out there on an island. But if you've got a second, I mean, this team essentially made 43 solo tackles. That's a lot of tackles. And what was striking to me is that of the 73 tackles the team made, 30 of them required more than one guy. Now, you can say it's gang tackling, but in most of those instances, I was charting them. These were slip tackles where another player had to clean up someone else's mess. Now, 26 of those tackles belonged to the secondary. 19 of them were solo. That's not bad. But the yards after the catch were not good. And Washington football team gave up 283 receiving yards. And what's crazy is that nearly 100 of those yards, as Donna said, were uncontested. This is not a good secondary, Tony. They're not playing well. They've got to play better. And if they don't, they're not going to be in any games here on out. Now, I will say that I really missed after sort of getting on the rookie, Benjamin St-Juste. I really missed him this week, and he probably will be back next week if he's healthy. But this defense can't hold the opposing teams on third down. You know, they're ranked 32nd in the league, yielding 60% on third down completion rate, and 75% of these are on your secondary, Tony. Think about that.
Number one, my name is not Washington, so it ain't my secondary.
No, but it was your secondary.
Number two, you're talking about the defensive line, you talk about the linebackers, and you're talking about the defensive back. So you're really talking about the defense. So schematically, they're not that good. Is that what you're saying?
I am, and I'm going to say too many.
You're going to eat those words.
I'm going to say too many wide open receivers. Donna was right. I mean, Kyle Pitts, Cordell Patterson were allowed to run free. Now, this team has had a Cordell Patterson moment in the secondary for the first 4 games of the year. Some guy running free. I mean, I've never seen that in a Joe Gibbs team ever.
I've never seen, Tony, the defense play this poorly, because even if they got pass pressure, that would help. But in the secondary, it's almost like they're lost as far as who's supposed to cover this guy. Is it the cornerbacks? Is it the safeties? It's almost like they're running around in circles back there. So I don't know what's going on overall with the defense, not your defense, but this bad defense overall.
Hey, Milt, you can't say anything. Just shake your head if you think she's right. Oh, okay. Hey, Mike, you got rid of his voice. Get his picture off of there now. He's agreeing with Donna. Let's just cut him on off, because I tell you what.
Gary, the truth hurts,
Tony. When they score a touchdown and they're playing 3 deep coverage, and there's no safety in the middle of the field in the 3 deep coverage.
The guy, didn't he trip or fall or something?
No, he bit on something.
No.
I'm not sure. You saw him.
He was looking at the quarterback's eyes. That's what happened.
Right? You know, because the cornerback's playing outside technique, playing his third. You know, the guy ran a post route. He's supposed to run into the safety, not by the safety.
Well, you know, and I'm going to tell you, that's the most you ever heard Gary Clark talk about a defense. And the bad thing about it, he's absolutely right. Yes, I'm sticking up for this defense, but at the same time, you can't have guys go out there and look like they're football players or be said that they're football players, but don't make the plays. I've been out there. I've seen people out there. And if you're going to be good, you have to make the plays. And when you can talk about every facet of the defense, then that defense needs to be fixed. And I tell you what, we're talking about how good of a game this was. Let's go to the special teams. Each and every, who has special teams?
1 second first, Tony. Do you sure you don't want to change that C+ to like a C- or D+?
Or D minus?
I'm not going there.
D minus?
Wait a minute. If I can give a quarterback who overthrew 3 people an A+, if you can do that, I think I can give him a C. And you know why I'm giving him a C? Because I guarantee you guys that they will change this around. My defensive line in the next 2 weeks.
Hey,
If
Tony,
they don't, I'm coming out of retirement.
What about this week, Tony?
Tony, yeah. Hey, Tony, could
What
you
about
correct
this
me?
week?
How many points have the defense given up just the last 2 weeks? What was
Wait a
the
minute,
score?
Donna. It ain't about that. If you average the points, when we played, and G would tell you this, we were always told to hold the opponent 17 or below, and you win the game.
Yes.
It's
Okay.
now 24 now, Tony. It's
Yeah,
been
well, you
fixed.
know what? What's the average? How many points did the offense score? See, we got to
34.
look at this as a team effort. That's why we're going
They're
to go.
they're scoring 20+, Tony.
Well, that's because they got 30-something other
So
day.
look,
Take that 30 off, and
The
they
only
down to
game- the only
15.
game they didn't score good was actually against Buffalo. All the other games they scored points.
I can't believe you guys, man. Y'all just sit up and what game?
Because I'm used to winning the game, quite honestly, 18-17. Because the defense only gave up 17 points most of the time when I play, quite honestly. When you play, Tony, y'all gave up 17 points max. Every now and then, somebody would have a big game, but for the majority of the season, you guys were 17 or less.
You're
Come
right
on,
about that.
Tony. Come on,
But-
Tony.
Yeah, Tony, 17 or less. Am I
It's hard.
right?
It's hard to defend, but you know what? I can say each and every week, one facet of the team has gotten better, and you fans know it. And we've talked about this for 5 years. But I know the big question. I got a call last night, and they said Donna Hopkins going with him. With him, I don't know who they mean, but I think they meant Hopkins, and he missed a couple of big kicks. And Donna, I'm telling you, I gave the special teams a B+, but I gave him a D.
I cannot even take up from this week, Tony, because 2 extra points could have cost that game. So I'm not even going to argue that point this week. So, you know, sometimes you become distance cousins. I'm with them still, but distance.
You can become very understandable when you get a chance to dog the defense, right? So you
Well,
understand
the truth
everything.
is the truth.
Now, you know, we joking a lot, guys, but we are pointing out the flaws in each of these. And one thing, if we look around the league and we look at the games that's coming up, they will have to correct this. They have a great opportunity, but you have to take a look down the street. You take a look at that Dallas team, and they're playing off the top now. The quarterback has come back. He acts like he hasn't missed a beat. Defense is still new now, but they took 9 people on defense last year in the draft, or 8 or 9. So they're ready to come on. And you look at the Philadelphia, they haven't found themselves yet. They just like the quarterback. And you look at the Giants, they still the Giants that we knew. So you got Washington here who has a chance, tied for second, to really get good. But you got to look at all facets of the team, and no facet has been good enough to be number 1 right now. Am I true with that, guys?
You're absolutely right, Tony. But Tony, you forgot to mention on the special teams, go back there a quickie, that DeAndre Carter ran 101 yards for the kickoff return to start the second quarter. Have they found that next Brian Mitchell possibly? Because even their pass protection and all of that in special teams has been good. But talk about Carter a little
What's
bit.
his position he plays again, Donna?
Wide receiver and kickoff return. I forgot. Tony don't know anything about the wide receiver.
No, you know Gary just wanted you to say the wide receiver. You know he did. But I have to give hats off to that young man. He is the first one that you've seen that is a threat. And I noticed that by the way the other teams tried not to kick to him. I tried not to get to him. He is a threat. He has been the reason that this team is seeing some improvement in their game the last couple of weeks. As he continues, he'll be a bigger part. And the way he can elude people, they're going to get him in that offense some kind of way because the boy can play. Now, you take a look when we come back, we'll go around the league a little bit. We'll look at our picks. Man, our picks are terrible, man. What's happening to all of y'all? But now that I hear y'all talk about the defense like that, Jerry, I hope your mic isn't cut off when we come back. And Mike, we're bringing you the playbook. Yours. You bringing it to us. We'll be back in a moment. Yeah, then we went out, we were talking about a young man on special teams. He ran for a touchdown. He's been a threat. Everybody's afraid of him now. I gave the special teams, I gave him a B+ because I think he deserves it. And remember his name. Remember the big play he made in the 4th down, the big catch that he made. You hear about him. But our kicker, extra points, Donna's cousin, I gave him a D. The same thing, but I gave her a D+ for last week. So Donna,
I'm
what
laughing
do you think?
because you.
Everybody has asked me, Donna. So just tell me, is your bag packed too? Is it true that you leaving?
Ain't
You going
nobody.
with God? If they get rid of him, you
said
leave
nobody's
the show?
leaving this week. And Tony, how in the world can you give him a D and you not give the defense? I know I'm a harp back on, but you gave him a high score and you gave him a D.
Hey, the
agree with
defense
you on
didn't
that.
cost it. If it not, he lost. He missed 2 extra points, which put him in possibility of losing, and that's all he gets paid to do.
Tony, I can't even say anything. I was speechless because I would give him a D also. So I'm not going to even argue the point this week because you're right. And speaking of that, Tony, it's time for our segment is I'm right, you're wrong. And the question for the panel this week is, looking at these 4 coaches, which one is the greatest coach? One is still coaching right now, but you've got Don Shurla, Vincent Lombardi, Bill Belichick, and Bill Walsh. And why do you think they're the greatest?
I'll go first on that. I think Bill Walsh was the greatest because he won. They won, I think, 4 or 5 Super Bowls, but at the same time, his line and his chain. A lot of these coaches you're talking about right now came from his chain. West Coast offense came from him. He developed 4 or 5 Hall of Famers. People still talking about it. One of the greatest quarterbacks, wide receivers, defensive back, team effort. I look at him as being the one, the stable that started it. Matter of fact, I think that Coach Gibbs may have got some of his thought process from him. So I look at him as being the best.
Mike, you're on the clock.
There's no question in my mind. And there's one thing and one thing only that should determine a great coach. And I'm going to even say a word about Coach Gibbs because he was able to navigate this. Belichick's the only one that negotiated the salary cap. and won a Super Bowl on either side of it. When that salary cap came into play, we talked on this show years and years ago, Tony, and we said the general managers of the future are going to be the most valuable players to be able to manage that salary cap. You remember when Joe Gibbs was playing and they wanted to pick up Calvin Bryant and they wanted to pick up Gary Clark and Ricky Sanders. The Squire said, no problem, Joe, I'll pay whatever you want. There was no salary cap. Once that salary cap came into play, it really dictated who the really great coaches were. And Belichick was the only one that could get a Super Bowl on either side of that salary cap. Joe Gibbs came back. Joe Gibbs, too, took us to the playoffs twice under that salary cap. And people forget that. He negotiated both sides of that salary cap, just like Bill Belichick did. But Bill Belichick's the best.
Okay, Gary, you're on the clock.
Wow, that's a tough one right there. I'm going to go with Bill. I'm good at either way with Bill. Both Bills did a great job. The offense we know today is a West Coast offense. That's what they run. Joe never ran anything like that. We had the East Coast offense. We were the vertical offense, none of that horizontal crap they run today. But don't get me wrong. Bill, when he ran it, they ran it to perfection. That's why they were the standard initially for how football was played. And Belichick, I mean, what can you say? I mean, all he does is win. He wins, and he wins. So, and he got the rings to show for it. So for me, it's a combination of both Bills. But if Joe would have been in, of course I'd have went with Joe, but he wasn't the choice. But it's Bill and Bill.
And Milton can't talk, so we don't know who he will go with. But I went with Bill Belichick too. Like Gary said, he just wins 17 playoff appearances, 6 Super Bowls. And you can't go wrong with any of them, even Don Shula, the winningest coach, and Vincent Lombardi. But Tony, it's back in your hands.
Well, you know what? You ain't gonna ask Mike. Mike, which coach do you think?
Mike did Bill Belichick.
I know it, but I'm giving him a chance to change that. Mike, you
No. Yeah, you know what? It was Papa Brown that started that West Coast. It goes that far back. I was watching a documentary on him with the Browns. Papa Brown, he was the one that started the West Coast. But think about that, guys. Think about that salary cap and what that did to the game of football. I mean, really, there were guys you wanted and you couldn't afford either that, and you'd be penalized. Think about the year that the Washington team got penalized, with 34 million because they violated the salary cap restrictions, and how that penalized.
They didn't pay enough money to have a salary cap.
No, I know.
Right. Right.
Anybody any money when we played? Are you kidding me?
But I mean, really, to be able to, that Belichick was able to do it. He was able to work both sides of the fence, and Joe did too.
He did it last year too, didn't he, Mike?
Yes, he did.
He did. That
yes,
shows you how great.
Yes.
All those other ones didn't have a Tom Brady.
No.
And I'm gonna have to say, I think Belichick was an excellent coach.
Lombardi,
I think that he does.
Lombardi may be though. The more I sit down and think about it, Lombardi may be the one, because you knew he was going to run and you still couldn't stop it.
Yeah,
that's true.
You knew when he was going to run and you still couldn't stop it.
As long ago as that was, I remember the play because they ran over me with 26 hustle. Okay. They pulled the guards after the centers, the running backs, receivers. You got hit so many different places. And I know what they just, I tell you, you may have a point.
Right. And only if he had the pass, who would know how many more Super Bowls he would have won?
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Well, Tony, who did the most in those names that I mentioned for the game? Was it the Lombardi, like Gary said, because of that running?
I think it's like anything else. When you talk about players, when you talk about who is the best player, you look at the era and you look at the situation. Yes. And each one of those were paramount and very important in what they were doing. I don't think it's fair to any of them to try to say one was better than the other. But I do think that you say they're always prominent in what we're doing right now, and they're better than most of them are coaching at this point.
100%. 100%. Any of those coaches are coaching today, they're winning. You can believe it.
Exactly.
Belichick is still winning.
Exactly.
At the end of the day. But you bring in Vince, he's going to be winning right now. I mean, he set the standard, period. He set the standard. And it's a Lombardi's trophy problem. When you win it, it's winning the Lombardi trophy.
Exactly.
Right away that, when you win the Super Bowl, you win the Lombardi trophy. Nobody else's name is on that bad boy but his.
Okay, Donna, you said what's right and what's wrong. I'm like Muhammad Ali. Is that all you got?
Well, we know that you're not wrong because you're still in delusion about your defense. So I left it in your hands, Tony. But
I do admit that rooting for this defense is like riding through the desert on a horse with no name.
Yes,
You don't
in
know where
action.
you're going or nothing. But at the same time, they do show sparks that we know what they can do.
I need a fire, Tony. I need a fire, not a spark.
I don't know why I'm trying to
What
defend
spark
them
plugs
so
are you
much.
using, Tony? What spark plugs?
They're
But see, you know
32nd,
what?
Tony. 32nd in the league, dude.
Oh, Mike,
Hey,
now
Gary,
you
talk
gonna
about a
come in
spark.
like you and I have been together longer. You gonna go with these young bucks, huh? I'm
I need
telling
a
you
flame,
guys.
Tony. I need a
Defense is
flame
so-
burning.
So
Tony, this is
delicate.
the first week that you've defended him, Tony. You've been the hardest on him all the other weeks. And you
You
defended
know,
this week.
the defense is so detailed that if one person mess up, they can get a big play. And that's what's
But they got
happening.
11 people messing up.
They get what we got. No, but let's look around the league, and we got a couple of minutes here, and we're doing a lot of joking. We're talking about coaches and stuff. But I'm looking at a changing of the game for coaches and quarterbacks and leaders. If you look at it, young coaches have come in, they've changed the game around. Now they're talking about the LAs was going to do this, and they're talking about the other ones are doing this. All these young coaches, 30 and 36 and 34 and all this. Then you look at the quarterbacks now. The older quarterbacks now is the second, they're the second ones you mentioned now, even Brady. Everybody want to mention the young quarterback. But one thing, and Milt, you mentioned this, the young quarterbacks can run and stuff, and you mentioned it, Don, but they're not going to last long. So if you look at it, it's a changing of the guard, but everything is for short play now. You're not going to have a Gary Clark that played 12, 14 years. You're not going to have that anymore. You're not going to have coaches that can coach 15 years and everything. It's all short range. It's all immediate gratification. And right now, if you take a look at it, it's really changed the game.
Tony, I want to ask you one question because you were the one that picked San Francisco as a possible Super Bowl contender this year.
Mhm.
And I look at these guys, these two young guys, McVay and Kyle Shanahan. And of course, they both came from Washington along with Matt LaFleur, who's in Green Bay. And they both lost on Sunday. And they both thought they pinned their hopes either on a quarterback, and they thought maybe that's what they needed. And then, of course, San Francisco went after the quarterback, but they're not really playing this kid yet. I think both of these teams, they're so short when it comes to backup players that I don't see possibly either of these teams being major contenders this year.
Mike, you are 100% right. 49ers have had injury problems for the second year in a row. They've lost a lot of key players. And the bad thing about it is the players, and Milt Shaky, and yes, if you agree with this, a lot of the players that got hurt last year aren't well. If you look at LA, you got a quarterback out there with a tremendous arm, maybe the best ever, but he has an attitude that he has derived from being in Detroit for all those years. He don't know how to win with the good ones right now. He's a good quarterback, and maybe they will. But if you take a look at those two teams, injury is holding one of them down, but it's early in the season. If they can get some of those players back, speaking of San Francisco, they got a pat defense, they got a good offense, and they run the ball well. LA, get this quarterback where he's used to winning, and you got a winner there. They may be the ones that put Brady and them out. But at the same time, right now, we do see the changing of the guard. And when we come back and we look at our picks, we know that the guard is changing now because, Mike, you were one of the winners last year, and you were in last place. We'll be back in a moment. How do you do that? Ask Donna, because she's with you. Oh, no, she isn't.
Oh,
We'll
I'm
be
with
back.
you. I'm with you.
Overlooked by many colleges, Trevor Stewart said, "When you believe in yourself, anything can be accomplished." In 2021, he stood on one of the biggest stages in sports, the Olympics.
To hear that I am Olympian, does it resonate yet with you?
I can say it definitely does, mainly because I was actually able to go out and execute both my races. And of course, it's always room for improvement, but I was also able to come back with 2 medals as well.
From Louisville, Virginia, the hard work started for Trevor Stewart as a freshman at Hayfield Secondary High School. And Coach Dwayne Scott, who got Stewart started in track and field, said that he saw something in Stewart that led him to believe that he could be something special.
And Trevor was a young man that put forth the hard work. He was dedicated. You told him once, and he was able to pick it up. And the funny part about it was initially I had him in sprints, and he just didn't have that turnover that you need to do the 55 was indoor track, so the 55 meter dash. So then I said, what about that 300 and the 4x4? And whew, that was it.
Trevor thought he was a sprinter in high school, y'all. I have you know.
Well, 400 almost is a sprint race.
But he
now.
was, when I say sprinter, I mean like the 100. And then he figured out when people are just now, they're at the end of their race, I'm just kicking in.
In 2020, with the pandemic and the Olympics being held off because of that, what was the process that you went through as far as training? Because you couldn't always train with your coach at A&T. What was your mental state going through that? Because we talk about mental health a lot. Just talk to me about the process, and then being asthmatic, running track.
Well, I can say when COVID actually did start coming out, my asthma did get dramatically worse. So I actually had to start using my inhaler again a lot more. And the whole pandemic shutting everything down, I actually had to sit down with myself a few times or stay up like certain nights and just think of what can I do if I'm not able to run anymore? What's my next step for me? And luckily I had people like Sandra, who's my girlfriend, that actually helped me out a lot, get my mind right. So when it came to training, we would go on long runs with the dogs or just general body workouts in the house. And that's how we usually kept in shape.
A childhood that he was asthmatic.
Oh, yeah.
And for a track runner, that's difficult. And then in 2020, we deal with the pandemic, which he said that it made his asthma even worse.
Yes.
How did you encourage him and talk to him about just pushing through that and being his support system?
Well, I'll start off with high school. You know, every morning I send him a text. Good morning, my greatness. Good morning, my future Olympian. All of these, you know, Mr. Man, good morning to my greatest creation. With those, starting him off in the morning with that. And Trevor's, I don't know if he's said it to anybody in the past, but very dedicated to his craft, which is what he's always told me. I'm very dedicated to my craft. And I tell him, you were born to do this.
So they say that Trevor Stewart was the foundation of that 4x400 relay. Because when you look at the 2021 season, you all had the best time, not just for A&T, but the world.
Yes, ma'am.
That's something special right there before you even got to the Olympics, before you even got to the Olympic trials. Talk about holding that record in the world.
Hey, that's a big record. And just having it for that long, even being in college, it's a big deal because you never expect it until it happens. So once it happens, you can do it again. You can do it better. You can do it faster. You can change little things here and there to make it flow more together, make it look more fluid.
You're with all the top runners from the United States. Were you nervous?
This is actually my second team trials. So the first time in 2019, I was extremely nervous because it was new. I've never been against these people before. I've talked to them. I ran a race model, and mental health is a serious thing, honestly. I can't even explain it. Like, first day, I'm feeling great. Second day, I'm feeling slightly depressed. Then third day, I'm getting back to my normal self. Fourth day, I'm already done racing, so there's really no point. But fourth day, it's like, all right, I'm ready to actually race now, which is backwards.
Talk to me about just that, well, the process of how you handle being at the Olympics and everything that was going on.
Well, being at the Olympics by itself was a huge eye-opening experience. But then I looked up and there was barely anybody in the stands. So usually when I look up, I usually look at the sky. This time when I looked up, when I was actually on the track, nothing but lights in my face. But lights come on, it's time to perform, right? So after that, it was just thinking to myself, okay, I barely ever ran first leg my 4 years of college. This is be the second time I'm doing it. So one thing I gotta do is hand it off first. Run my race and hand it off first. Then the gun went off. So luckily I was able to hand the baton off first, and after that, that's how we got the bronze.
When I look across and I look at your T-shirt, it says United States.
Yes, ma'am.
What was it like running for the United States, representing your country?
It was a new experience. I got to meet a lot of great people from the team, and it was overall eye-opening. Because in the track world, you feel kind of small. You feel like you're in a small-knit community. Then you see athletes that have been pro for years, athletes that have been to multiple Olympics like Allison Felix, and world champions like Fred Curley, and you sit down and talk to them, and they're just like you. They have the same mindset. They might speak a little different, but they all have the same goal in mind. They want to go out, put everything on the line, and win.
How did it feel standing up on the stage?
Oof, it was hot.
When your national anthem was being played for the world to see.
That's a big deal, because when your national anthem is actually being played, you see how you're a part of something bigger than yourself. And for me, being a part of something bigger than yourself is a huge deal, because I've only had my single mother who raised me and my grandparents along with my aunts and cousins. But other than that, it hasn't been a whole conglomerate of people around me. So when I feel like I'm actually a part of something bigger than myself, it actually hits home pretty hard.
It wasn't just about getting to the Olympics for Trevor Stewart, but it was having medals draped around his neck when he left.
Tony, the great thing about Trevor is that he's only 24 years and the best is still yet to come. He said that he plans on having more of those medals. But when you look at track runners, Renato Nehemiah was a track runner that ended up being, I think with San Francisco, being drafted by him. So you got a lot of transitions there. And you yourself, when you look at the speed, you ran a 4.4 in the 40. And you look at Darrell Green, who was a track runner that came into the NFL also. So it's almost like they cross paths, but speed is speed. And Ronaldo was one of the greats in track.
And that was a great piece you had in it. And I'm glad that you brought that point up, because a lot of you are probably saying, this is a football show. No, we're a sports show. We like to show the good that everybody does. And we look at the people that could have been football players that did not play football, but they ran track. And that's nice to see one of these young individuals, and he's out there running track and one of the fastest in the world, and you sitting in his backyard talking with him. Yeah, bring that on to the show, Don. I like that, but I tell you what, I think I could have took you.
I don't know, Tony. I'm waiting for you to take me onto the track, and you've been.
Oh, you ain't made a jump shot yet. Make a jump shot before you do all that.
4 years, Tony.
Let me bring the guys back. Take you on. Make a jump shot first. When we come back, talking about, she's worried about the picks, and Donna's in second place right now. But
no, I'm in first with you.
Oh, I can't believe that. We're tied. You see that, ladies and gentlemen? We're back in the moment. Maybe some new personnel in that seat. Thank you.
All righty. Well, this is the part of the show that I love the most, because I usually bring up the rear end on this, so to speak. But this has been a very difficult year. And I'm sure a lot of people who are in the wagering business have experienced the same thing that we have. But Tony is 8-12, and he's in first place at 8-12. Gary, 5-15, who normally is right at the top. Donna, always consistently toward the top, 8-12, but she does slip us a couple bucks to say that. Milton is 6-14. He's having audio problems this week, so we can say bad things about him. And Jason Campbell went 3-2 last week. That wasn't bad. And of course, I am, along with Milton, who's our higher power. I emulate him, so I'm at 6-14 as well. But we had Carolina, Dallas, Cleveland, Minnesota, Arizona, the Rams. We had some tough ones last week, no question. This week we have a couple of even tougher ones. So we have Green Bay at Cincinnati, and let me just ask you, Donna, is there any chance in the world? It's at Cincinnati now. Is there any chance in the world that Cincinnati has a chance of upsetting Green Bay?
Hey, Mike, the way this season is going, it's parity finally, and Cincinnati can give Green Bay problems. They played them well over the past, but I still think Aaron Rodgers, after that first few games and everything, has got that team going in the right direction. So I think that Green Bay goes up into Cincinnati and comes away with that win.
Yeah. This one is, I mean, we're split on this one. We got Cleveland at the Chargers. And of course, when we saw Washington play the Chargers, we knew they had a good team. Justin Herbert's he's the real deal. And then they stumbled, but now they've come back and they are playing particularly well. They're going to be at home, but a couple of us are picking Cleveland. Gary, why would anybody pick Cleveland in this game when the Chargers are at home?
I don't know, quite honestly. That's why I picked the Chargers. I'm not sure. The dirty Cleveland Browns. I'm not sure about that. You know, maybe they're afraid to get the dog bones thrown at them like they always do, but the Chargers will win and a walk-off.
Yeah. Well, I'll speak for Milton, New York Giants at Dallas. Now, the Giants came back last week and they whooped New Orleans, which shocked the living daylights out of me. So that worries Washington fans this weekend when the two meet over at FedEx. But everybody's picking Dallas, and Milton's a big Dallas fan. So I sort of jumped off the boat last week. I could have gone 5-0 if I just thought with my head instead of my heart. I could have gone 5-0. Instead, no, I picked against the team that I like.
I could still be playing football too, Mike.
I know. Yes. What is it? If what's the old expression? Oh, well, never mind. It's just a losing expression. So everybody's picking Dallas this week. Tony, San Francisco at Arizona. You still think San Francisco might have a shot? I'm going to talk to you about San Francisco at Arizona, and I'm going to ask you about Buffalo at Kansas City, which I think is the game of the week. What do you think about San Francisco at Arizona?
San Francisco would beat Arizona, but right now Arizona has it rolling pretty good. Their offense is really the key to their whole game, and that's what's hurting San Francisco. A lot of their if you remember on one game last year, they lost 2 starters. Those 2 starters haven't come back and made an impact yet. They also lost some other players, defensive backs, so they're really hurting right now. Had this game been prior, maybe 3 weeks ago, I would tell you that San Francisco is going to win. I don't think they will this time. Arizona wins that one.
Boy, they put up 37 this past Sunday. I think it shocked everybody. It really did. I mean, and of course they added to their defense too. Buffalo at Kansas City. Kansas City seems to be coming back. We're going to really find out what Buffalo's made of, aren't we, Tony?
I seem to be making a lot of money, but that's a lie too. Kansas City ain't coming back nowhere. They're 2-2, and they're lucky to be that. So I tell you what, I look at this Buffalo as for real. They got a big quarterback. Their quarterback's bigger than a lot of the linemen. Then they got every lineman that's 6'7", 300 pounds. They got the running game. They drafted 5 or 6 defensive players this year, and they got it in the cold, but this isn't in the cold. I picked Buffalo because they may be the best team in that conference.
Yeah, boy, that would be really rough if Kansas City lost this one because they're in a very tough division. Just the last word, Tony, with regard to this team coming up, playing, of course, New Orleans, who actually lost this week to the Giants, a team that almost beat Washington. What do you think? You got 30 seconds, buddy.
Dangerous team. And you look at this team, they got beat last week. They won. New Orleans is a team you can't really put your money on which one they're doing it, what's quarterback they'll play. If they play Winston, they got a chance to throw interception. They play the other guy, he makes plays. So what Washington will have to do is play a consistent game. It's going to be a tight game. I think Washington can pull this one out. And, you know, we had a lot of fun this week. And you look at this Washington team, guys, and you look and we come back next week and they've won this, then we'll look at them as a different team. But we'll talk a little bit about what people got in their life right now. And I'm not trying to be political or anything, but I always want to end with a word of wisdom that I think you have in the pandemic. All of you have your right to feel the way you want to feel about the pandemic. All of you have a right to get your shots if you want to or not. But one thing I do tell you do is find out your information. Make sure you know what you're doing and follow the science because you want a chance to make it. And one thing I do know, chance favors the prepared mind. Thank you very much. We'll be back next week. And as I always say, not goodbye in the minute.